September 9th, 2018. This is Mostly Linux on Mostly Gaming. Ladies and gentlemen, let's roll. And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us here on episode 0.24 of Mostly Linux on Mostly Gaming. And we've got a big story today. I guess it's a small talk. This is not an Overwatch League podcast, but at Toronto Owl, that's at Toronto, Toronto, and then OWL. One word, Toronto Owl, at Toronto Owl. That is the new Twitter address for the Toronto Overwatch League team that is going to launch in 2019 right here in the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario. And you know, I'm involved in the ownership group. I'm one of the signatories in the team participation agreement. I've got a great group of partners there that, you know, came together in a community-focused group. We've got a lot of individual shareholders that are involved in this, some big, some small, from across Canada. And we got together and we partnered up with an amazing esports organization out of Rochester, New York, named Splice, that is just class organization from top to bottom. So honored that we have a partnership with them. My company, Overactive Media, is also an investor in Splice. So we let's just go to the Overactive Media Twitter site as well. Overactive Media Group is an esports ownership an investment group. We have a number of investments in the esports area, including Ascot Entertainment, Enthusiast Gaming, which owns a number of web properties, including Destructoid and The Escapist and a number of others. Runs gaming expos. But you know, those are somewhat secondary now to this major initiative, which is to basically bring Overwatch to Toronto via the Overwatch League. This podcast is a side project. This will have nothing to do with the Overwatch League, with Overactive Media, with Splice. You know, I may tweet some thumbs up from time to time on it. But you know, I want to keep them separate. This is not a marketing vehicle for esports. It's a side project. I mean, look, I'm going for the biggest, for the smallest niche market you can in PC gaming, which is Linux, and I'm doing it because I'm an enthusiast in it. It interests me. I like to be ahead of the trends. I'm a venture capitalist by training, and I see a future in Linux, and I like to get ahead of the curve. Like I see a future in esports as well, and I'm so honored and so happy that we have been chosen by Activision Blizzard to be the representatives for Toronto in the league. It was a lot of work. Let me tell you, the process is deep and involved. The team at Activision Blizzard is incredible to work with. Smart people, diligent. They know what they're doing. And if you're wondering why there's so much hype over the Overwatch League relative to other leagues, even for games where the viewership is even higher than for Overwatch, the reason is business people see the business case that Activision Blizzard is making, and they are making the best business case in the industry. And I am a believer in city-based franchises as well. look, these guys are doing everything first class. An honor, as I said, to be involved with them. I want to make sure, that I'm not, implying here that I'm taking the credit for getting this done. It was a good group of founders, myself, my co-founder Sheldon Pollock, Michael Kimmel, of course, principal investor, and then Splice, Marty, and his group over there were and will be critical to the success of the franchise, and finally this gentleman right here on the screen, Chris Overholt, who I am so honored that he chose to join us, leaving the Canadian Olympic Committee to come and run our Overwatch League franchise. He's a terrific guy. I've only known him, well, I would say I've known him for 6 months. We've been talking to him for quite some time. He knows some of my partners going back quite a bit longer. And you know what? You're on the right track when things come together easily. When things are coming together easily, you're on the right track. When you're having to fight and kill and kick and push and bite for every piece of success that you get, at that point, you got to look and say, am I on the wrong path here? And I've been on both sides of that. And let me tell you, when they tell you to keep fighting it out and never give up, I am not a big believer in that advice, because the reason you maybe have to fight so hard is because you're going against the grain in a way that is unlikely to be successful, right? Changing the grain in the wood is much harder than finding, a path that takes you downstream. So anyway, this is not a venture capital advisory podcast either. This is mostly Linux on mostly gaming, but I wanted to get that out there. We are going to be making a lot of moves over the next little while. If you want to follow this kind of stuff, follow Toronto Owl, follow Overactive Media, which is the corporate account. You can follow Splice, and then you can follow eventually our players as well, once we've announced them. And that's it. That's the Overwatch League part of our podcast, and I hope to basically keep that de minimis going forward. Let's move on to the show. Our non-sponsored video this week is Surviving Mars, which is a Paradox game, about a month, maybe 6 weeks old, launched day and date on Linux, and published by Paradox, which is having a big Steam sale this week. So we're going to take a look at that as part of the show as well. But our non-sponsored video will be this, Surviving Mars, by a Linux user by the name of Michael Fox. Michael Fox is on YouTube. He's got about 96 views on this stream. This is part one of it. It's about an hour long. We're going to play it silently in the background. This is his Linux playthrough. Let's just take a quick listen.
Evening all. Welcome to Mars. Oh, surviving Mars. Beautiful sunrise on Mars. So, what shall we do? Well, this is Surviving Mars, first and foremost. Now.
All right, we're going to keep that there for those of you with a lazy eye to follow. And we'll be back in 10 seconds with our news feeds. And we're back. Let's take a look at our news feeds this week. Lots of kind of interesting stories, small and big. Just before I do that, though, let me just kind of show you this graph on the screen here. For those of you in the audio, it's a graph that basically shows It's a system monitor application that shows the resources that the machine is basically taking up with a streaming chart for CPU history, memory and swap history, and network history. And I usually keep that up. I mean, I usually use this on a secondary screen just to, track system resource use. But I have had a number of people asking me, hey, what is that? What is that you're running there? How do I get that? If you're using pretty well any distribution, but certainly GNOME desktop compatible distributions, you can just basically run system monitor. It's probably pre-installed in many distributions that I've tried. So just hit your super key and type in system monitor, and you probably will see that popping up. I'll do that here, system monitor, there it is, and you can basically track that as well. It's good to track when you're playing a game. You can take a look and see what, whether you're being bottlenecked, whether it's using all of the cores in your CPU. It doesn't track GPU usage, unfortunately. You'd have to use a different program for that. But anyway, this is simple, it's cool, it's nice. I keep it on my screen. You can see right now that I'm using anywhere between 40 and 50% of my 8 cores. Right now the desktop is using all of the cores. You can see the spike went up when I hit the super key. Let's hit it again. As I was typing, system monitor coming back. Yeah, you can see that it kind of spikes up. So anyway, that's what it does. Good for tracking your system resources, and that's how you get it for those of you that have asked. So let's begin with our news feed. First story today is, and I just saw this when I was when I launched the machine this morning, is there is a new Proton beta available. 3.7-6 is the newest version. If you relaunch your Steam client on Linux, it should automatically upgrade you to that. That's what happened with me. I didn't have to go back in to select it. I did go in, obviously, to see that it was selected, but when I went back in there, 3.7.6 had replaced 3.7.5. There are some fixes here in terms of 3.7.6. It fixes a failure to start VR games. There's some improvements to full screen games running at non-native resolutions. I've run into this myself with a couple of the games when I'm trying to basically adjust the resolution on my 4K screen between 1080 and 4K in particular, and sometimes 1440p. It has a compatibility fix for games that use Steam integration. I haven't run into that, but thank you for doing it. And there's a return to previous D3, D10 behavior in DXVK to allow games to fall back to D3, D9. So what that is that, sometimes games work better under DX9 than under DirectX 10, and this basically allows them to fall back to DX 10, 9, rather than to rely on DirectX 10. So this is the second update. Second weekly consecutive update in Proton. So terrific to see the ongoing work there. And if you guys want to know my views, just go back to the last couple of episodes where we spent quite a bit of time talking about Steam Linux integration and Proton and so forth. And let's leave it at that. Next story here on our list is this story out of Ars Technica, which is a little controversial, I think, for Linux users. The headline is Progressive Web Apps Moving Mainstream as Twitter Makes Its Mobile Site the Main One. And let's take a look at the Ars Technica story by Peter Bright, arstechnica.com. And this is basically a story that talks about how progressive web apps are increasingly becoming the de facto standard app not only for mobile, but for the desktop as well. And for those of you that aren't aware, Progressive Web App is a web application that's built on browser features, usually Chrome or Chromium. And they're basically designed to support a number of programming features so that you can effectively run the app based on browser technology, but as a standalone native app on your screen. And if you've ever run Spotify or Discord or Slack or any one of a number of games, I think there's Mail Spring is another one. Tons of them out there right now that are effectively progressive web apps. Sometimes referred to as Electron apps in the Linux community. PWA is something that is used mostly by Microsoft in the Windows community, but the technology is the same in both cases. And the advantages of Electron apps, I'm going to go with the Electron terminology here rather than PWA, but the advantage of Electron apps is that you can basically build them once and then run them on a number of platforms. So right now I'm going to load up the Discord app. Here it'll pop up in a second here on Antergos. And you can see here's the Discord app. This is an Electron app. It is based on web features, but it runs, like an app. It's a native app. It updates. It does whatever it needs to do. I don't need to run it in a browser window. It has a lot of functionality. And you can see here I'm following actually Team Canada's Discord for the Overwatch League World Cup. There is a lot of negativity towards it in the Linux community. I don't really understand why. I mean, there's a sense that this is not a pure Linux native app. It's a browser app, and I just, again, for me, being like a non-programmer, and there are a lot of programming types that are attracted to Linux, and so they have their specific reasons as to what is better and what isn't and so forth. But look, my view is having a large app selection is better than having a small app selection, and anything that leads to us having more apps available is a better thing. And the move not only to Electron but to progressive web apps on Windows as well means that any PWA will work on Linux. And so you don't have to worry about something being Windows only and without the app being available on Linux. But more importantly than that, because let's face it, Windows is a legacy platform that is really suffering some of the same issues that Linux has suffered for quite a while for having a small user base. And while Windows has 700 million users, at least Windows 10, the latest version, it is dwarfed by the size of Android and iPhone. And what developers are doing is obviously migrating over to Android and iPhone. And Windows is having a hard time, Microsoft is having a hard time getting those apps to run on Windows. And many of them don't run, or many of the Windows-only apps run, but like crap. So the PWA initiative is to basically say, okay, use these standards, and Microsoft is pushing it, in a big way. Create your apps using PWA technology, and then the same app that runs on Android will work over here on Windows as well. The plus, the upside for us is that those apps will also run on Linux. So the more apps, the merrier. This particular story is that Twitter is going to be combining its its app, its desktop and Android app into a single Electron app that will be available to both platforms, including Linux. And if you go to mobile.twitter.com, you can get a sense of what it looks like. This is basically the mobile version of the app. They're going to basically take this and create it into a standalone application, which is good. And then that's going to be the app for Windows or for Linux or for Android. It'll be the same app for everybody in a single standalone application. So more positivity towards that. And let me just kind of remind everybody, I am positive and I'm going against the grain here, against the Linux grain, when I'm saying Electron apps are good for Linux. And if you go back through the 23 previous episodes of this podcast, we started off by basically saying Wine is good for Linux. And then DXVK is good for Linux. And we chose, our game of the first quarter of this year was a Windows-only game called Into the Breach. And our argument there is it works flawlessly in Linux. And if it works flawlessly in Linux, I don't care that it's a Wine game or that it's a DXVK game or whatever the technology that is bringing it over to us on Linux, as long as it works. We took a lot of flack for that. People were basically saying a lot of stuff about Wine, and there is that crowd still around. But when Steam announced Proton and Steam Play integration, the many, 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 many thousands and thousands of users who just want to play games dwarfed all of those people that complained. And those I won't call them loudmouths, but they have a louder voice in the Linux community, are doing the same thing to Electron. And I think they're on the wrong side there. Respectfully, I think they're on the wrong side. This is a good change. This is a good thing for Linux. Okay, so let's move on now. Next story: Purism's privacy and security-focused Librem 5 Linux phone delayed to April 2019. I'm not at all disappointed. I am a backer of Purism. I've had occasion to talk to the CEO there and really appreciate what they are doing with the Librem 5 Linux phone. For those of you that are not aware, Purism ran a crowdfunding program maybe earlier this year. I'm going to say first quarter, maybe January timeline, where they basically raised a few $1 million to create a privacy-focused Linux-based mobile phone, and called the Librem 5. They have been working through on. Actually, I take it back. It wasn't early this year. It was sometime last year that they basically did the crowdfunding. And in any case, they basically raised a bunch of money, and they're creating a phone from scratch with a version of the Linux kernel 4.18. Looks like they're partnered up with GNOME and KDE and a number of other partners to basically make this a reality. And the failure of the Ubuntu phone earlier, the Firefox phone, has created a lot of skeptics, almost sickly number of skeptical people who seem to trash on this project for whatever reason. And I for one have not been one of those. I've jumped on top of this. I think this is a great initiative. I think there is a market for a privacy-focused phone. The key is it has to work. And so their latest update, they basically, look, this is a big challenge to build a phone from scratch based on Linux. And the reason is not only the difficulty of working with the new technology, but it is the difficulty of integrating that technology into the hardware, all of which is designed for Android. Because that is the main open source operating system for handhelds. You know, Apple has its version, and they've got their suppliers, and those suppliers only make the Apple hardware, right? But everybody else makes Android hardware, and you know, with respect to driver support and you know, just getting it all to work together. It's designed and optimized for a different operating system, and you're trying to basically make sure that it all works together, that it all talks to each other, and then that it works with your software. So it's a big challenge, and maybe that's one of the reasons why so many people are skeptical that they can get it to work. But I'm hopeful, and the Purism, which is the company running the project, announced that they're going to basically delay the shipping of the phone until April 2019, and that's fine. To be perfectly honest, you know, the guys at Purism, if you're listening to this, Todd, I never thought you would meet your January timeline. I think that was ambitious, but you know, even if you delay it longer, my advice to you is, even if you're going to delay it longer, you know, do it. You only get, you know, one chance at making a first impression, and the challenge for you is to make sure that it works, and it works well. The bigger challenge here is that you have to commit to a certain hardware specification, and that is a point in time. And the longer it takes to develop the phone, the older the phone is when it launches. So, you know, it's already getting a little old. It's not going to be, you know, it's not going to be like a new phone when it comes in, because it's going to be using some older technology, and that is, you know, that is just a challenge, and that is going to be what needs to happen for your first phone. Okay, the Librem 5 that launches in 2019, whenever it launches in 2019, will not be a AAA, you know, top of the market phone. It will probably be a lower end phone. And we, your backers, are probably going to be paying a big premium to support a lot of the research and development. And I think it was like $600 US is what the phone costs as part of the support program. And for sure we could get the same specs at a smaller price, but it's not a privacy phone. And what you guys need to do, and I think what the other, what the other podcasters and pundits need to understand is that, you know, this is going to be a beta of the hardware, and what you want to do is you want to make sure that the software works, that it's usable, the user interface works, that it is something you can take and say, I can work with this, or there's a path to working with it. And then the hardware can always be improved later, right? So that's my 2 cents worth. I'm still optimistic. I think there is a big market for privacy-oriented phone, and that ties in again to my discussion earlier about PWAs and Electron apps. As they move to that technology, all of those apps will work on this phone. So the Discord app that I was using, the Slack app that I was using, the new Twitter app that is out there, all of those PWAs will and should work on this phone. And working to a common standard that is not locked behind a specific OS is good for the market. And there is an opportunity here. So that's why I backed it, and that's why I'm cheering for Todd Weaver and his group at Purism. Keep up the good work, guys. Take your time, get it right. You're doing a great job communicating to your user base, and screw the skeptics. You know, they're always going to be out there. I've dealt with a lot of different industries and subgroups. Man, there is a lot of skepticism among the Linux hordes. And that is just, you know what, you probably have a higher level of intelligence than your average user, They are very analytical. A lot of them are scientists or computer science guys or programmers or whatever, and they just ask a lot of questions. Okay, and that's the reality of what we're dealing with here. To quote Elon Musk from his pot smoking video, I prefer to be an optimist rather than a pessimist, and be proven wrong. Okay, finally. Actually, no, we got a couple more stories here. The next one is Linux Mint Debian Edition 3 Cindy Cinnamon is out. Here is how to upgrade now. This is from softpedia.com. We covered Cindy on an earlier episode of Mostly Gaming. Let me take a look. Episode 19. Here we go. So Mostly Linux on Mostly Gaming, episode 0.19. We took the Linux Mint Debian Edition 3 Cindy beta out for a test run, and found it good and usable. Cindy is, for those of you that want to see our walkthrough, go to episode 0.19. Probably the best place to get it is, if you want to watch it, is I'm gonna say YouTube. Just search for Mostly Linux, or at Mostly Linux on YouTube. You'll find our YouTube channel there. And that was my phone. I put it on. Okay. Probably the best place to watch the video is on peertube.social. So if you go there and type in, there we go. Just type in Mostly Linux, and you should see our videos there. Just take a look for video number 0.19. And that'll walk you through the paces. This is at Mostly Linux on Mostly Gaming, episode 0.19. All right. Okay, so that's that. Linux Mint's in terms of the article, Linux Mint Debian Edition 3 Cindy Cinnamon is out. Here's how to upgrade now. Basically, it's as simple as typing in sudo apt install mint upgrade if you're already using the beta. If you're not using Linux Mint Debian Edition, then you will need to install it. You can do a live install via a USB stick, and you can run it in the virtual machine if you want to put it through its paces. Which is what I did on episode 0.19 there. It is based on Debian instead of Ubuntu. So Linux Mint is one of the, if not the most popular flavor of Ubuntu. Ubuntu itself is based on Debian. And so what the Linux Mint group did is, Linux Mint proper is based on Ubuntu. That's the one that most of you are probably using if you're using Mint. And as a backup, in case Canonical blows up, they decided to make a version that is based directly on Debian. The cool thing about Linux Mint Debian versus traditional Debian is that versus traditional Linux Mint is that this is effectively a quasi rolling distribution. It doesn't have version numbers, so it updates things on an ongoing basis. Now, those of you guys that are aware of Debian know that the update cycle for Debian is very slow because it focuses on stability, and it is used in servers and things like that where uptime is a big deal. So it is not a great distribution for gaming. For that reason, it's just the apps are going to be older versions, stability and so forth. It's really targeted at lower end computers, it is cool to give it a run through. But if you want to basically, if you're a typical user and you want to do some gaming in addition to your work, you're probably better off with the Ubuntu flavor of Linux Mint. If you really want a super steady, version of it, you're going to be running a server in your home, and you want to have access to a wider array of technology and platforms and updates than Debian would provide. Then Debian is for you. I liked it. Our overall review was that it was an interesting project. Probably not for everybody, but if they could make like a rolling release of this that updated more often, it would be called Arch. Okay, so that is that. Finally, GNOME 3.3 Almeria desktop environment officially released. Here is what is new. As you can see here on my desktop, I'm running GNOME on top of Antergos. 3.3 it brings a major new series of features and improvements. This is also from Softpedia. I have not gone through this in detail, so let me just kind of read from the article by Marius Nestor. What's new in GNOME 3.3? Probably the most important feature of the GNOME 3.3 desktop environment release is the return of the GNOME Classic mode that lets users use desktop icons. After it's been removed from the Nautilus file manager, the handling of the desktop icons returns as an extension for the GNOME shell user interface. I don't use icons on my desktop, so that does nothing for me. But if you like to use icons, they're all back. Best of all, the new desktop icons GNOME shell extension can also be used on the previous release of the desktop environment 3.28. Blah, blah, blah. What else? Thunderbolt support is now officially configurable from the settings panel. I don't use Thunderbolt. The GNOME Boxes virtual machine manager received remote desktop protocol support for remote controlling Windows systems. Support for importing virtual machines in the OVA file format. Okay, so I think that's worthy kind of update. GNOME Boxes is kind of cool, but not ready for prime time. So good to see some improvements there. GNOME Boxes is basically a virtual machine manager, so you can run virtual machines using GNOME Boxes. The GNOME Games app now lists Virtual Boy games in the Games Collection view. It supports the Virtual Boy, Nintendo DS, Game Gear, Master System platforms in the flat pack format. Last but not least, the Notes app. Notes has been redesigned a bit, and it now features a new primary hamburger menu on the main view, an improved note view format, as well as the new text size option. Lets users zoom in on the note view. Yeah, okay. I don't use Notes largely because I use a lot of different computers, and I need them to be integrated between my computers so that I don't have to update them on each instance. And so I use, as you can see, a combination of Firefox, Notes, and Google Keep. The 3.30.1 point release will debut September. The GNOME 3.30.1 point release will debut September 6, 2018, and all of this stuff will be coming to you in the main distribution. I will wait for this to be pushed through Antergos. I don't believe I'm on GNOME 3.3 right now. Whenever that comes, I will upgrade to it. And yeah, and that's our news feed, I think. Is there anything else? No, that'll be it. We'll be back in 10 seconds with our Discovery Queue. And we're back with the Discovery Queue. This week we have a big Paradox Publisher weekend here on Steam. And so, if you're listening to this after, next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, rather than Saturday or I guess Sunday, of this week, then this might be too late. But Paradox is probably the most prolific publisher of Linux native games on Steam. Here's an interesting kind of thing. I'm just for those of you guys on the audio, I clicked the link for the Publisher Weekend sale, and there is a Twitch.tv stream there of user Stein, who's also playing Surviving Mars, but it's Twitch, and as we know, recently Steam launched Steam.tv, and it is, I just kind of find it a little funny that they are prominently sticking a Twitch stream instead of a Steam stream. I suspect that maybe the stream is actually sponsored by Paradox rather than by Valve. But in any case, that shows you some of the challenges that Valve is going to face in terms of overcoming the lead that Twitch has. So anyway, Paradox Interactive Official. You can basically, I'm going to follow them. Kind of funny that I don't follow them. So they've got basically all of their games on sale, from Europa Universalis 4, which is 58% off. Actually, it's more than that, 75% off. You can get the entire Empire bundle for 58% off. You've got Stellaris is 49% off. City Skylines is 60% off. Tyranny, great game by the way. Tyranny is 65% off. Battletech is 30% off. Surviving Mars is 40% off. Basically everything is hugely discounted, and nearly everything that I see here, maybe Battletech aside, which is apparently still coming for Linux native, is available for Linux. Well, no, I see some here that don't have the Linux logo, but many of them do. So give that a shot. Like I said, support guys that support us, and that's how you can kind of make your contribution to the world. Anyway, next story is in our list is Dragon Quest XI: Echoes of an Elusive Age. This just released last week for Windows. Dragon Quest XI: Echoes of an Elusive Age, digital edition of Light. It is a Windows game, Windows only, but it works on Steam Play. It is not perfect. It is a little variable. I installed it and ran it using Proton, and it ran 4K 60. And then outside of that main area, I would get frame rates, down to 10. And you know what? Changing the resolution, changing the settings did not do anything about it. Apparently there is a fix. You can go to Linux_gaming, the subreddit there. Somebody actually went to the GitHub and posted it up to the guys that are working DXVK, and they came up with a solution. I'm not going to actually use that solution right now. Apparently the update is going to be incorporated into DXVK and then integrated into Proton, so a fix is coming. The game is not well optimized for Windows either, right? So the performance issues on Linux, what can I say? That's the way that it is for now, but at least you can play it. And if I was using Windows, I'd probably say there's performance problems there as well. The developer, which is Square Enix, is going to optimize this game, and hopefully it'll be optimized to work a little better on Linux. Now, when you buy this game and play it on Linux, it counts as a Linux game. And it is a Linux game. I'm only playing it on Linux. It's a terrific game. For those of you that are not aware, Dragon Quest XI follows the perilous journey of a hunted hero who must uncover the mystery of his fate with the aid of a charismatic cast of supporting characters. This is as JRPG as you can get. It is old school JRPG. Like, I haven't played a game like this, you know, since 1998, kind of old school, right? I think probably the most recent game that I would have played that is like this is probably Dragon Quest, I think 8 or 9, the one that was on PlayStation 2. But that's how long it's been since we've had a Dragon Quest game on a proper console or PC. Because I believe Dragon Quest X was like an online thing. Dragon Quest 9 was a handheld game only. So Dragon Quest 8 was on the PS2. So it's been a very long time in the Dragon Quest franchise. This game is old school. Right, I put in about maybe 6 hours over the last week, and you know, it's a slow build with all of the JRPG tropes, with all of the things that you might love or you might hate. Like, if you don't like JRPGs, this game will not change your mind. It will probably make you hate them more. If you do like JRPGs, and especially old ones, and miss, you know, turn-based battles and all of the tropes and limited open world. Like, if you like all of that stuff from Final Fantasy VI or Dragon Quest VIII, this game is like a love letter to you. So I'm enjoying it modestly. Like, I'm not going to tell you that this is really catching me right now. I think I need to get further into it. I just kind of got to the point where I'm into the open world. You know, you've got a hero that doesn't speak. This story is very cliche. I understand from the reviews, because they are so over the top in terms of the reviews, both user reviews and professional reviewer sites. You can see here on Steam that the reviews are very positive. Only 428 reviews, however, which, you know, for a game this big, only 420 reviews indicates to me the sales might not be super strong, which means that it's probably going to go on sale sooner rather than later, and it is a full price game. It's $80 here in Canada, $60 down in the US, and you know, similar in your currency, probably 60 euros, 60 pounds as well. So full price, really expensive. Be committed if you want to basically do it, but it's a 100-hour game that I don't know if I'm ever going to finish, but it's worth checking out to see what's going on. 91% of the 428 user reviews for this game are positive, and they're probably all JRPG fans, right? This is not going to penetrate through. But in any case, let's take a look.
Lives. The lucky few who rode the storm out struggle to survive. Amid the depths of despair, a spark of light still shines. A man who gives the people hope in these benighted times. Yet that light too shall soon succumb to evil's ceaseless claim. Only you can take that spark and kindle it to flame.
That sounds like something from a fairy tale.
This adventure isn't over yet. Onward to Yggdrasil!
We're on a quest to bring sunshine and laughter back to every corner of this drab world.
Looks like it's finally time for a date with destiny.
If you're looking for new adventures, I know where we can start.
Right, we've got more friends to find, and an evil overlord to beat. Don't you think we'd better get going?
All right, and that's the first trailer. You can see there's a number of trailers here on Steam. you know what? I'm going to try to kind of plug through and see how it goes. You know what? I am just so happy that I can play this on Linux. That's the reason why I bought it. I don't have time to play a 100-hour long JRPG, but it's like I wanted to see whether I could basically get it, but was it compatible with Steam Play. I figured I'm gonna download it and I'm gonna give it a shot, and if it doesn't work, I can get a refund. And I ran it and it worked. And there was just something, intangibly amazing about having it run in Linux. I don't know. To me, it was just so amazing, and it sounds silly to maybe you Windows guys out there that basically can play anything, but I'm playing like a Dragon Quest game on Linux. It just kind of resonates with me. Also because I did play Dragon Quest 8, which I don't know. It's probably like, is it 15 years? 15 years old now. So long time ago. Some of my kids weren't even born yet, and I enjoyed it, played it all the way through, and it's been just, it's been a very long time since another Dragon Quest game, and the world has changed so much in those last 15 years. Let me just actually double check. When did that Dragon Age game, Dragon Quest 8? Dragon Quest 8. Let's go to the Wikipedia. Level 5. First released in Japan in 2004 and in North America in 2005. So 2005 was 13 years ago. So yeah, so I was about right. 13 years is a long time in technology, especially, and the entire industry has changed. Not only just in terms of the power of the machines and so forth, but the games as a service component. Esports as a component, streaming, and and the streamer culture with YouTube and so forth. And this ignores all of that. This game is a throwback to 13, 14, 15 years ago. And if you are not used to the way the games, especially Japanese games, were played at that time, limited freedom, linear story, girls that are underdressed with big boobs, it may surprise you, and you may wonder what the hell is going on. But it ignores the 15 years of evolution that has happened in games, and I kind of like that. I kind of like just having a story that takes me from beginning to end without me having to break every box to try to find, side stories to enhance the length of the game. I don't know. It works. I like it. It's stupidly Japanese, and I'm happy that it's on Linux. What else do we have? That's it. You know what? I haven't gone through games that I've been playing in a while, and so let me just do an update there as well. Over the last little while, I've been trying a number of different things. But first of all, I've been giving Mass Effect Andromeda a run on Windows. I actually started that game on Linux. Big fan of the original Mass Effect trilogy, at least game 1 and 2. Game 2 on our best stories list was listed as one of the best stories of all time. So I'm a big fan of Mass Effect Andromeda. Mass Effect Andromeda, just got panned, and it brought BioWare Montreal down, in fact. But I've got the game. I thought I'd give it another run. I'm maybe about 10 hours in over the last 2 or 3 weeks, maybe the last month. It's okay. I'm not I'm not having an issue with it. I started it on Linux, and then I got to a point where it just no longer runs. So I think there is a point where you actually get your own ship, and it may have something to do with the texture, filtering, filling, whatever the case might be. It just will not load those textures for that ship. So I installed it on a Windows box, and I've been playing it over there. Pillars of Eternity 2, I've been playing this for 4 months maybe now. I'm playing that on my XPS 13. It's a Dell machine, mostly kind of on the road or in bed. My wife is watching some crime show, and I'm just kind of picking through that. Still probably the top contender for Game of the Year on Linux. Dragon Quest 11, which I just mentioned, I'm playing that on Antergos, the 1070 machine that I'm using here at 4K. I've been plucking away at Final Fantasy 15 Portable Edition on my Essential phone. Probably, I think I'm on chapter 10 there. It's the kind of thing that I'll play for a while and then not, go back to it for a month or two. I'm actually at a part now where I keep dying, and it's a little frustrating. But Final Fantasy 15 Portable, I've actually got Final Fantasy 15 proper on the Xbox One, and prefer to play the Portable Edition on my phone. That says a lot. And they're actually launching the Portable Edition now on the Xbox and the PlayStation 4 and the Nintendo Switch. The Portable Edition is a throwback to old JRPGs, right? Final Fantasy 15 tries to do the open world stuff, game as a service stuff, the modern kind of things that work for many publishers and many gamers. I just want to go through the story, and I don't mind being handheld through the story. No pun intended. So that's something actually you can take a look at it. It's available for Android and iPhone right now, and it's also available, as I said, it's already launched for Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and it will be coming to Nintendo Switch. No word on PC. Uncharted 4: A Thieves End on the PS4. This was on sale for like $10, and I'm a big fan. I think Uncharted 2 was selected as one of our best games as well. Big fan of this series, particularly that second game. And I've been meaning to play a Thieves End. I find it hard to buy a game at full price on PS4, to be honest with you, because it's such a closed platform, especially games like Uncharted, which are not available anywhere else. And Sony has a history of not supporting backwards compatibility. So, you buy a game and you can never play it again. And once that platform is dead, and you have to buy it again. And I just, I don't like that. So, I didn't buy the game when it came out, and I am happy that I didn't, because the game is probably, at 10 or 15 bucks or whatever I paid for it is the right price for me. The problem with this game that I'm finding is just the meaninglessness of the death toll that you're basically and I know this has been kind of a complaint in the older games as well, and maybe I'm just maturing as a human being, or maybe I'm becoming an idiot, but you go into this place filled, it's Italian, for example, art auction, and you're going to try to steal something, and these people who are who are not criminals, they're basically just protecting this stuff, to allude that they might be mafia related, but they didn't do anything to you. And as part of your mission, I probably killed like 500 people. Okay. And then at the end I'm celebrating with my buds, right? And we're talking about and what about the toll that killing 500 human beings had on my psyche? Whatever. And my next mission is going to be probably to kill another 500 people, and by the end of the game I've probably racked up a death toll of maybe 10,000 people that I've murdered or otherwise killed to get to the end of the game, and presumably I live happily ever after. I don't know. Okay, maybe he retires, maybe that's why it's called The Thieves End. It just seems weird to me. All right, and I know it's just a game and that's a mechanic, but I think the previous games at least did some a better job, you know, at explaining that the guys I'm killing are bad guys and they hadn't come into it, right? Or that they attacked me, or whatever the case would be. You know, this first mission here in the Thieves End, I don't know. I see no reason to have wanted to murder 500, 600, 700 people. They didn't do anything to me. You know, I broke in to their art auction under false pretenses to steal something, and I murdered 500 people and then got out. And then I don't know. Maybe I'm changing, like I said. It's weird. Okay, and I find it hard to play as a result. Next game that I'm playing is Wolfenstein: A New Order. I'm playing that on the Antergos 1070. Man, I've been picking away at this game since it launched, and I keep hearing about what a great story it is, and I keep kind of picking it up and trying it again. I haven't gotten to America yet, and I think I'm on my way there. And apparently, the story picks up once you get to America under the Nazis. But it's a little too hard for my gaming skills today, at least the normal difficulty. I'm finding that I have to work through it. Like it's probably not a hard game. It's just a little harder than I would find it, kind of comfortable to play at right now. At my aging skill level, and then the easy mode is a little too easy, so it's not that well balanced, and so I find it a little frustrating. But I go back to it occasionally. I will try to go back to it when I have a chance. Right now I'm going to focus on Dragon Quest 11, see if I can kind of get through that, and then maybe I'll pick at Pillars here and there on my laptop, and maybe Final Fantasy 15 on my phone. So that's what I've been playing. We're going to be back in 10 seconds and do a quick focus on building a gaming PC for Linux. And we're back with our focus on topic, which is building a gaming PC. And we have had actually more questions asked about building PCs than anything else to our email address, mostly Linux at protonmail.com. And it kind of surprises me because I'm used to building PCs, so I know a lot about how the pieces and the parts and all that kind of stuff go together, and I follow the reviews and know which parts are better than other parts. But I kind of have to just kind of take myself back and remember what it was like when I didn't know any of this stuff. And so I thought I'd make the focus on topic just an introduction to building a gaming PC on Linux. And kind of walk you through some of the steps. This is more targeted to people looking to be, who are newly looking at building a PC, a gaming PC. Maybe you're gaming on a laptop. Maybe you're, gaming on a pre-built machine. Let me tell you that building a gaming PC is easy. It is easier than you think, and it is inherently doable. And I will walk you through that right now by building a PC and finding the parts and putting it together. We're going to use, in fact, part one is go to PCPartPicker.com. Okay, that is the PC building website that everybody uses. So go to PCPartPicker.com. I'm using the Canadian version here, ca.pcpartpicker.com, but they have a site that is tuned to many different countries, including Australia, Belgium, Germany, Spain, France, India, Ireland, Italy, Netherlands, New Zealand, Sweden, United Kingdom, and United States. So you can pick, if you live in any of those countries, you can pick your flag of choice, and it will find it will not only price it in your currency, but it will find the distributors and retailers in your area for you to buy the parts. So this is the first thing you need to do if you're building a PC is go to this site, and on the site, you can basically, you know, it's basically a PC developer, sorry, a PC game builder resource, and guys that basically make their own machines and so forth end up coming over here and you know, looking at parts, finding pricing, and then posting their build. So you can see here on the page here, entry level Intel gaming build. You know, this guy built a machine for $670, and he basically posted it up here. You can go and take a look at his build. The featured guide is a great AMD gaming build. This guy built it for $1,400. What we're going to do is we're going to try to put together a build for $1,000 Canadian, which is inexpensive given the value of our dollar. And I'll just kind of walk you through it. So let us first, here's a build I was kind of putting together earlier. Let us start a new part list. And so what the site basically does is it gives you all of the components that you need to order, and then it manages to make sure that everything is compatible with everything else. So that you don't get parts that don't work together, right? And that is the biggest kind of breakthrough you need to make. Like, how do I know that all these things are going to work together? If the parts all work together, then actually building the machine is pretty easy, because the parts are just kind of click and attach, right? It's not very hard to do together. There's videos that you can watch on YouTube that show you how to do it. Once you have the parts, putting them together is easy. Making sure you get the right parts is a little more complicated, and that's what this does. So let's start with a CPU, which is the first choice here. Choose a CPU. First choice you got to make is whether you want to go with AMD or Intel. And the current state of technology is as follows. Intel has chips that are faster in terms of the frequency, single core frequency and multi-core frequency. They run at a higher frequency, sometimes up to 5 gigahertz, but they tend to have fewer cores and they cost more per core. AMD is typically less expensive, but they run at a lower frequency and have more cores, right? That's kind of the thing. For gaming specifically, a higher frequency today beats having more cores. More cores basically means having effectively more CPUs in your computer. And many games today are not optimized to use, you know, 8 or 16 or 32 CPU cores on your machine. They're optimized to use 4. And what they do is, even 2 actually. So what they do is they basically, you know, kind of optimize 2 or 4 cores, and then the higher your frequency, the better your performance. So Intel is better for that, there's no question. And the chips typically cost a little more, but if you want to get the best performance for gaming for today, Intel's the way to go. But there's a change coming, right? And you know, we've got new GPUs that are coming out that I talked about in the last couple of episodes as well, the 20 series GPUs from NVIDIA. And the technology that those GPUs use, at least we've heard from Electronic Arts on Battlefield 5, they go deep, which means that they go wide and they use all of the cores. They rely on many more cores to basically process the artificial intelligence and the other technology that is built into these new GPUs. And there may very well be a shift coming to multiple core support. And we see Intel moving their core counts up. So we are getting to a point now where it's not the case right now. So if you're building a build right now for today, you want to go with higher frequency, lower cores. But if you're building it and you want to be, you know, ahead of the curve, you want to go for more cores. You still want higher frequency. You always want higher frequency, but the value of the cores will increase. And on a per core basis, AMD beats Intel in terms of the price per core. And so there's no easy answer, right? In terms of that, you got to choose, do I want to build a system for, even if you want to build a system for the next 3 years, you're probably going to be better off going with higher frequency Intel. And you're probably, 3 years is a long time in technology. I have ordered, a new GPU, the 20 series, the 2080 Ti, and when I look to upgrade, I'm going to look for an AMD processor as well. I'm keeping an open mind to the new i9s. The new i9, I think they're going to be 16 thread maybe, or 16 core CPUs. They're not out yet, kind of more along the lines of, say, the 9700K. Although I think they've got a 9900K, I'm kind of like, I'm lost at this point with respect to Intel's numbering, because they used to have a numbering system where the i7s would be the top of the line, and they would be multi-core and multi-threaded, and now they've got the i9, and some of the i7s are not multi-threaded. And if that sounds like gibberish to you, it kind of is to me as well. So in any case, I am going to do this build with an AMD chip because I do some things other than gaming, right? So I obviously run this podcast. If you do things like, encryption, decryption, if you want to run, Photoshop type apps, GIMP and so forth, if you want to stream, if you want to do things that might tax your CPU, going the multi-core route is the way to go. And they're also lower, less expensive as well. And, ultimately, the performance differential for gaming is going to be a few frames, right? The performance of gaming, particularly on a low-end card, is going to be more limited by your, like, $1,000 budget is what I mean. It's going to be more limited by the GPU than the CPU. And for those types of builds, I go with Ryzen. And so, for a $1,000 build, you can see the Ryzen 5 2600 is $250, right? So, it's kind of tough to basically build a $1,000 machine with a $250 CPU. But there is the AMD Ryzen 5 2600. The Ryzen 5 2400G. And what this is, the 2400G is an integrated CPU and GPU. It's got a Ryzen 5 processor, which is, let's take a quick look. Because this is a cool product at a great price for a budget build. Ryzen 2400G review. Okay, so let's take a look at this review from Rock, Paper, Shotgun. AMD Ryzen 5 2400G review. Impressive 1080p gaming without the need for a dedicated graphics card. And so the question here is, do you really need a fancy new graphics card? Because if money's tight and you're willing to put up with a few compromises, the AMD Ryzen 5 2400G could be just what you're looking for. It comes with basically a dedicated CPU, and it comes with a Vega class integrated graphics card. Now, it isn't going to play your games in 4K, right? But with some fiddling, you're going to have a good experience of 1080p. So in terms of the tests, on paper, putting the 2400G through Geekbench's CPU benchmark suite, the same test system I used with the 2200G, I actually saw it perform slightly worse than its cheaper sibling. Well, that's interesting. In Geekbench's single-core test, the 2400G returned a score of just 34.9, It's a multi-core test, so I finished with a score of 8. So that is a little kind of disconcerting. Why did it underperform the 2200G? But a quick look at the rest. Okay, so he's saying that may be an anomaly. Numbers aside, I certainly don't have any complaints about the 2400G's speed and responsiveness in daily use. After all, what I'm really concerned about here is integrated Vega graphics, which definitely give it a noticeable edge over its cheaper sibling. Blah, blah. Let's take a look. For an integrated CPU, the price is positively outstanding. On balance, it probably is worth the extra price over the 2200G in terms of the performance of the GPU. So not, a bit of a mixed review there. And what, look, when you're building a PC, you want to basically do a couple of things. You want to take a look at the stuff, you want to take a look at reviews, you want to finish your build, and then you want to go to Build a PC, the subreddit r/build a PC, and post your build there for the community to give you some feedback. And I'm going to do all of that as well. But right now, let's go with the Ryzen 5 2400G as our integrated CPU GPU. And that basically gets me a $200. The next choice that you have to make then is what kind of a build do you want to make? Do you want to make a small little tiny PC? Or do you want to make a big desktop PC? For this build, because we're using an integrated GPU, CPU, or what AMD refers to as an APU, we're going to make a small little console. Okay, so we're going to choose a micro. We're going to choose a mini ITX build, and in fact, let me just take it back. Okay, so this is going to be done in real time. Rather than actually choose the motherboard now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the case first, and then decide which motherboards support the case that I am going to use. So let's go back down here to the bottom and say case. Choose a case. Let's find a cool little console-like case. Let's find show. Oh, excuse me. Let's go with an HTPC case. And let's take a look and see what they've got. HTPC is basically something that looks like it would make sense underneath your TV. So we've got the HTPC cases here. Let's run the ratings. Fractal Design Node 202 has 36 reviews and the highest rating. Fractal Design Node 202, the one below it, comes actually with a power supply. Let's buy the one. It's a little more expensive at $200, but we've got the budget. Let's take a look at that one first and see what it looks like with the 450 watt power supply. So here's a picture of it right there. You can see it kind of looks like an Xbox. There's my dog, Tara. Stop it, Tara. All right. See, it looks a little bit like an Xbox One. Looks kind of sexy, actually. You can put it right side up or right side down or sideways or whichever way you want. I like it. So let's go with that. I'm going to pick the one, again, I think the pricing here is kind of high. You can do better than these prices depending on your budget build, okay? I'm not saying this is the most optimized per dollar price. This is going to focus on showing you how to build a PC. So let's put that together. This comes with the power supply built in. You can see that. So you don't have to worry about buying power supply later. Let's add that on. I now can choose a motherboard that works with that, and it looks like they're mini ITXs. See, it's kind of like a spreadsheet at this point, right? I mean, pick your motherboard, find a motherboard that works with a different, find your case, find the case that works with your motherboard. PC Gaming does it basically. PC Part Picker does it all for you. So let's go take a look at the ratings here. ASRock B350 gaming is the highest rate. It's about $175. I want to get a 450 machine though. The 450 is basically the newest generation of the chip, and you know, I want this to basically be upgradable for down the road. Now I've got 4 choices here. I've got the MSI B450i Gaming Plus and the Gaming ITX by ASRock. I'm going to go with the less expensive one now for the sake of argument. There's a couple of others there with no reviews. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're not good. These are all maxed out at 32 gigs with only 2 RAM slots, largely because they're small boards. So let's get that in there. I have now, I don't need a power supply, don't need a video card. I need some storage though. Let's find a good SSD for this machine. And the best SSDs are these M.2 cards over here. So let's kind of click them both. Let's take a look. Let's try to find something. The problem with these cards, with SSDs, is that, you know, as your capacity goes up, the price is really going to go up as well. So let's find something with at least 500 gigabytes. And see what the price is like. Okay, let's rank them by price. Okay, well, I can get something for about $150. Let's take a look at something that is 1 terabyte and see what the price increment is. Yeah, okay, so I can get a 1 terabyte, sorry, capacity SSD for about just under $300. Okay, let's do it. Let's find the Samsung MZN6E120BW 860 Evo. Samsung is probably the leader, I would say, in terms of SSDs. It's $259. Let's add that to our list. Now I've got a full M.2 SSD. This is going to be super fast on that stuff. My cost is $856. The one thing that I do not believe I have on this is Wi-Fi. I don't believe there's Wi-Fi on the motherboard. So let's find ourselves an expansion card for wireless network adapter. And let's get something that is modern with A, B, G, N, and AC. Let us rank them by rating, and we've got a couple of options here. The most popular one in terms of ratings is the Gigabyte GC, which is $50, which is a significant discount to the Asus one, which is the highest ranked, but $117. I don't think you need to spend $117 on a network adapter, so I don't know what the scoop is there. But the Gigabyte is more than fine at $51. So that is that. What else do I need? Here's kind of an interesting thing that I always find when I'm building these things, right? Right now, my budget is $907.01. That is tax included here in Canada. So my base total is only $827. I set a budget of myself for $1,000. So I've got $907 after tax, right? Because I'm incorporating the value of the tax here as well. But if I want to basically then get Windows, right? If I want to get Windows on my gaming PC, that is pretty damn expensive, right? So I want to get, let's say for example, I want to get Microsoft Windows 10 Pro, which is really what you need to use for a gaming PC. It's $170. $170. You know, adding that to my list is going to basically now increase my budget to $1,075. I'm over my budget. If I've got a fixed budget of $1,000, I can't do that. I'd have to go back now and get the home version, which, like as I said, is not as good for gaming. For $122, that'll probably just get me close to, it'll still get me over $1,000, right? Or, going with Windows is not a zero-sum game, right? Because you can go with Linux, use Steam Play, and not be able to play 100% of the games, but I can spend that money on better stuff, right? I got another extra $100 on my budget now. So I can basically take a look and say, hey, okay, so why don't I add some cool peripherals, right? Instead of Windows, why don't I get a nice little gaming keyboard? This is going to be in front of the TV, so let's go with something that is wireless. And why don't I take a look at the ratings? I've got a budget. It looks like I've got a budget of maybe $70, $80. Let's take a look. Logitech MK550. Oh, that looks kind of cool. Okay, so it's a Logitech. It's a gaming version. It comes with a wireless mouse and keyboard. It's ergonomic. All right, let's go with that. So let's stick that in there as well. And there I go. I've got $981.59 after tax with my operating system, which is going to be Linux. And I've got this cool little nifty machine. I can stick that under, beside my TV. I use it as a console. It's got a terabyte SSD. $1,000 is going to cost you more than a console, but it'll outperform any of the consoles today. And it's got a 1 terabyte SSD. Cool little machine. That's how easy it is to build. When the parts come in, you're basically set to go. Before you finalize it, though, here's what you do. You take this link right here, permalink, you copy it, and then you jump on over to Reddit, okay? And you copy your list. It's going to take you over to Reddit right now. You copy your list here when you click the Reddit button. You go over to Reddit. And you go to the subreddit called Build a PC. Let's find it right here. And Build a PC is basically a community for people that build PCs, right? And if you go to r/build a PC, what you should do here before you take anything else is you basically go over here and you take that link that you just copied and you submit it here, and you basically say, here's what I want to do. What does the community think? And you will get some very good comments back from people that are saying, you know what, this motherboard is better than that motherboard. This thing is better than that thing. Your Logitech mouse that you picked really sucks. I've tried that. That chip that you used is not as good. The 2400G that I want integrated, for slightly more, you might get these two things over here and significantly improve your performance. You will get some incredible feedback. It's a great community. I go to it all the time. I contribute to it all the time. And they've got over 1 million subscribers, right? So lots of people here. Post it there, get your feedback, and you're good to go. So that's that. Please don't take that build that I just put together and say, okay, I'm going to use that build. That build was just done for the purposes of showing you, how to use a PC part picker and how to basically go through the steps of building yourself a PC. You should do your own homework. You should take a look at the reviews and understand what you're buying. You can also just build it there and post it on subreddit, and they will basically give you all sorts of really good feedback as well. If you are looking to build a PC, or you want to basically send us your thoughts, or you want to build a specific type of PC, and you want some feedback, just send me an email at it's just mostlylinux at protonmail.com, and say build a PC for me and give me what you want to do, like what kind of a build that you're looking for, what your objectives are, what kind of resolution or frame rates that you're looking for. Let me know what you want. Send me the question, and I will build a PC for you online, and other people can basically see it, and we can fit your budget and your terms and your country, and hopefully get you started. Yeah, that would be pretty cool to do. So send your request to mostlylinux at protonmail.com. And I'm going to be back in 10 seconds with some final thoughts. And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us. I think this episode went a little longer than I anticipated, but there was a lot of stuff to cover, and appreciate the few of you that made it to the very end. Here's where you can reach us if you don't already follow us. You can find us at mostly_Linux on Twitter. You can subscribe to our podcast at mostlylinux.libsyn.com, libsyn.com. You can get access to you can stream our podcast there. You can subscribe to it on Apple Podcasts. You can find pretty well any podcast app, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher. Go in there and search for, at mostly_Linux, and you will probably find us right there, and add us to it, Dogcatcher as well, and just subscribe that way. We're on Reddit as well. So if you go to Reddit, r/mostly_Linux, we will be there for you.